Good morning. My name is Jennifer Robum, licensed clinical psychologist and faculty for the Family Medicine Residency of Western Montana. I'm talking to you today about advocacy and leadership skills with a focus on ways to preserve the resilience of health professionals themselves. The learning objective for this segment is to identify personal self-care strategies for health professionals engaged in climate change-related work. In the climate change and mental health segments, I spoke with you about the adverse mental health impacts that we anticipate in the face of worsening climate change. The coronavirus pandemic has helped us to appreciate the mental toll that providing care and addressing community needs can take on health professionals. Researchers have found that during and after COVID-19 outbreaks, healthcare workers have experienced significant rates of PTSD, depression, insomnia, and other emotional symptoms. Others have written about the psychological toll that doing climate change-related work can take on climate and earth scientists. I know, because I've worked with several of them, that health professionals engaged around climate change are not immune to such impacts. In fact, many of us engaged with the climate crisis struggle at times with our own emotional responses. When thinking about and working on climate change, we often focus on the science, on facts, and on statistics. But if we're really paying attention and engaged with this issue, we need to acknowledge the emotional impact of this work as well. We need safe ways to get in touch with and stay in touch with our emotions without shutting down or feeling overwhelmed, so we can be leaders in this field while also doing our jobs, connecting with our loved ones, and finding joy in our lives. In this segment, I plan to talk about personal self-care strategies. These are strategies that individuals can employ to reduce the adverse psychological impacts of focusing on climate change or of treating patients impacted by climate change. These are strategies and tools that you can share with your friends, colleagues, families, and patients, because we'll need to build resilience in all of our communities as we face the climate crisis. Importantly, if you find it difficult to function or get through your day even when practicing these strategies and skills, you should not hesitate to seek the help of a trusted mental health professional. We all need support. Before I jump in, I want to say a word about psychological defenses. For many of us, our defenses kick in when we're feeling sad or hopeless about climate change. Distraction, suppression, and emotional numbing can help us to forget, to give our brains a break, at least for a while. But too much protection makes us rigid and clunky. Our defenses can become counterproductive when they keep us from accepting or adapting to reality and from feeling the energy necessary to engage. So it's okay to engage our defenses some of the time. We all need to take breaks. But if you find that you're doing a lot of scrolling on your phone, surfing the internet, or numbing yourself in some other way, consider engaging in some of the self-care practices that I'll be reviewing next to get yourself back on track. As I've written here, we've got work to do. So let's start with preventive maintenance. I jokingly put a rubber ducky on here because self-care gets a bad rap sometimes as something a little frou-frou or self-indulgent, like bubble baths and pedicures. But really, I'm talking about taking good care of your body because that will help you to take care of your psyche. Healthcare professionals are notoriously bad about self-care, often forgetting or refusing to put their own oxygen mask on first before helping others. It's critical to get enough sleep and exercise, to eat well, to get outside and build community, and it's important to cultivate these practices throughout your careers. Some people think that a focus on preventive maintenance or individual mental health is narrow-minded, a luxury we can't afford since we need to focus on fighting climate change. In my mind, we need to do both. It's important to take care of ourselves and others because attending to climate change is hard and it's painful. But given the projected increases in population level distress that we talked about in the climate change and mental health segment, anything we can do to prevent mental health concerns is just good practice. When I train physicians, I teach them strategies that they can use to coach their patients in self-management of distress, because patients who take steps on their own behalf to manage their symptoms of stress, anxiety, and depression tend to do better. My not-so-hidden agenda is to make sure that these dedicated young physicians are also exposed to these strategies for themselves, knowing that medical training can be grueling and that many of them will struggle at some point during the rigors of residency and beyond. In that same spirit, I strongly encourage you to coach your own patients in these self-management strategies while also trying them on for size for yourself. The first strategy is simply to break the climate silence. In the climate change communication segment, I noted how infrequently many of us talk about climate change and why we might be hesitant to do so. But when we share our feelings, our anxieties, and our fears with others, they become more tolerable, and that can help with the profound sense of isolation that we can sometimes feel when we're panicking about climate change, or when others just seem to be blithely carrying on with their lives. Breaking the silence and talking about our emotions with a safe person, be it a partner, therapist, friend, or colleague, can give us a place to process or at least acknowledge our feelings. It can help us to feel more grounded and stronger in the face of the climate emergency. I can speak from my own experience in saying that finding trusted colleagues with whom I can talk regularly about my own distress related to climate change has been essential to my well-being. We learn more every day about the protective and restorative benefits of time in nature for mental health. So a second strategy is to get outside. Exposure to green space can enhance mood and reduce stress and distress. There's an added benefit from time in nature for health professionals working in the climate change space, and that contact with the environment will help to remind us why we're doing this work. Luckily in Montana, we have many beautiful outdoor spaces in which to play and explore. A third strategy is to get grounded. There are a wide variety of grounding and mindfulness practices, and knowing how to ground ourselves is a really important life skill for the purposes of self-regulation. I'd encourage you to explore a number of these strategies to find which ones work best for you. Deep belly breathing engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to downregulate and calm emotional reactivity, so that can be a helpful practice. Progressive muscle relaxation can reduce muscle tension and restore a sense of groundedness. Meditation practices can help to focus our attention away from distressing thoughts or alternatively help us to sit with them. The beauty of practices like these are that we can do them at any time. They cost nothing, they don't have to take very long, and they can help us to reset our bodies, which helps to reset our minds. A simple internet search can help you to find videos, scripts, and tutorials for any number of grounding practices. Another strategy is to notice your thoughts. Our thoughts help to create our reality. I put this image here because I can be a glass half empty person, and that sometimes makes things more difficult for me. Climate change can be a challenge because we need to recognize how bad things are in order to push ourselves to take action. And at the same time, if we focus too much on climate change, we can become easily overwhelmed or despairing. And if we think things are hopeless or too much, they will be. So when we catch ourselves struggling with negative thoughts, we can substitute coping thoughts like, yes, things are really difficult right now, but I've got tools to help me with my feelings and good people to talk to, and I'm doing my part. We can practice acceptance, acknowledging that things are difficult, but choosing not to make them worse. It can also help to focus on the things that we can do, however small, or on all of the good people who are working on the problem. A fifth strategy is to practice gratitude. Generating positive emotions and practicing gratitude can help. In terms of climate change, it might mean thinking of things in our own personal lives that we've overcome, or of examples in history where people engaged with difficult problems that felt impossible but prevailed. Such reminders can help to combat feelings of helplessness or hopelessness. Engaging in a regular gratitude practice can also help us to focus on the positive. We can often take things for granted, especially the good things that are generally everyday occurrences like being able to breathe clean air or having access to nourishing food. With regular gratitude practice, it becomes easier to notice even the smallest things that are worthy of celebration, and that can help with our moods. Another strategy is to jumpstart yourself. Low mood can lead to avoidance. If we're feeling blue about climate change, we may stop doing things that we typically enjoy because they don't bring us as much pleasure. Or we withdraw socially, or we numb out, or we hide under the covers. Paradoxically, we can stop doing a lot of the things that might help us to feel better. Getting activated can help to reverse that downward spiral, helping us to re-engage in our lives and with the people and activities that can help us to feel better. It can help to come up with a plan of simple, concrete things that you can do. A walk with a friend, a phone call to your sister, a short run in the park, and then stick to that plan regardless of whether you feel like doing it. Over time, you'll get a little more traction, and hopefully that will help to jumpstart you again. A seventh strategy is to lean into stress and anxiety. Our first impulse is often to run to our cell phones, to the internet, to the nearest bar when we're feeling stress or anxiety related to climate change. But the best way to learn how to cope with these feelings is not to run away from them, but rather to lean into them. If we allow ourselves to sit with the discomfort of anxiety, that discomfort will usually decrease over time on its own. A good analogy is like jumping into cold water. At first, the temperature is extremely uncomfortable, and our brains send us messages of cold, 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 and get out, get out, get out. But if we stay in the pool, the water seems to warm up. Of course, it doesn't really get any warmer, but we do get used to the discomfort and can start to focus instead on splashing around and having fun. And that leads me to my final strategy. Make time for play, and joy, and laughter. Climate change will be there when you get back. So, in summary, it's critical for health professionals engaged in climate change-related work to make time and space for preventive maintenance and personal self-care, if only so they can take better care of others. I encourage all of you to try something new today to add to your self-care toolbox. Please don't allow yourself to become another casualty of the climate crisis.